Good evening. Welcome to the Community Awareness Committee's April panel discussion. Our topic this evening is SunTrust Park and the Battery. I am Trish Steiner, Chair of the Community Awareness Committee. The Community Awareness Committee is a committee of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. The Neighborhood Safety Commission is comprised of 15 individuals who are appointed by the chairman and the district commissioner. We welcome and thank you for attending this evening and welcome those of you who are watching on Cobb TV. We have cards available for written questions. Please raise your hand and we will collect your questions throughout the discussion this evening. Please turn your cell phone off or on silent as this will interfere with our broadcasting this evening. Our moderator this evening is Joel Cobb. Joel is an attorney who's practices trial litigation. He has been a practicing attorney for 20 years. He currently serves on the Neighborhood Safety Commission and served as chair for one term. He is now the secretary of the Community Awareness of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. He serves as the president of the Mableton Improvement Coalition and president of the Mableton Community Fund. He has also served as secretary and president of his HOA. We are extremely honored to have our distinguished panel members this evening, and Joe will now introduce them to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome. I want to extend a welcome to our audience members, both here physically as well as online and also on TV 23. I think tonight's discussion will be a very interesting one about the Atlanta Braves, who I believe are actually playing this evening. So it seems especially appropriate we're having this discussion this evening. Normally we have introductions of our guest panelists, but I think some of our panelists tonight don't need much introduction, but I'll have them introduce themselves anyway. This topic is, of course, concerning the Atlanta Braves and some of the things like transportation and public safety, which are things I think people always want to hear about and have been talking about. And as you know, this is the first season they're in their new space. For our members of the audience, we have index cards. If you'd like to write down questions that you can be submitted through myself that we can ask our panelists. And of course, there are some questions we've already received and have already talked about and identified. And so we certainly appreciate people getting that input. And certainly want to thank in advance all our panelists in advance for taking time of their personal schedules to be here with us this evening to share on this information about this very important topic. So I think without further ado, I'd like to introduce our three panelists. We have Major Jeff Adcock, who is over at Precinct 3. We have Chairman Mike Boyce of the Cobb County Commission and Commissioner Bob Ott of the Cobb County Commission. And so, Major, if you would start us off, just tell our audience a brief mention about yourself, and then we can go to our other two panelists, and then we'll get started with the questions.
Absolutely. So my name is Jeff Adcock. I'm a major with the Cobb County Police Department, and I'm the precinct commander of Precinct 3, which is Cumberland and encompasses the SunTrust Park and the Brave Stadium. I've been with the county for 25 years, and my position is just below the deputy chief's position in the department. So that's where the rank structure falls.
All right. Thank you. Chairman?
And I'm Mike Boyce. I'm the newly elected chairman of Cobb County, coming in office on the 1st of January. Lived in Cobb since late 2000 when I retired from the Marine Corps. My wife's from Atlanta, and she gave me three options when I retired: Marietta, or Mayretta. So that's why I'm here. I'm really, really pleased to be part of a 5-member board that has really done a lot in the last 3.5 months, both with regard to this incredible Braves partnership that is already producing fantastic results, both in entertainment value and also in resources to help us to pay for our many quality services in this county, and also to move this great county forward into the future. So I'm looking forward to the questions tonight, and I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner?
Good evening. I'm Bob Ott. I'm a District 2 County Commissioner, and I represent the area that encompasses the Battery and SunTrust Park. This is my 9th year on the commission, and then prior to that, I spent 4 years on the Planning Commission. So I've been up in the county for about 12, 13 years. Been in Cobb County for 26 years, and so looking forward to continuing the great success that we've had so far with the opening weekend.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, obviously, there's a lot of involvement with the Braves Stadium, of course. People think about the Braves themselves, but there's certainly other components that go with being a major sports franchise. But let's turn to the physical stadium itself. You've heard the term the Battery used already this evening. What is described as the Battery in this case?
I'm going to take that since that's an easy one for me.
Sure, go ahead. We'll see how you do.
Well, as you know, when the Braves purchased the 57 acres that they're currently on now, there was two components to it. There was a baseball stadium called SunTrust Park, and then there was the retail element, which is Battery Park. And in the Battery Park are establishments like restaurants, retail outlets. There's a theater, and it's a complement to the big overall idea of the Braves to have a major year-round venue where people can come to enjoy some incredible experiences, both baseball during the season and then off season, to come and bring their family and experience the various retail outlets that are there. The SunTrust Stadium, as you know, opened on time on April 14th, and Battery Park right now is in the process, slowly moving its way down the street to opening up all the outlets, including residential areas. So it's a really great concept of both work and play, work, live, and play. And I'm really excited about this whole idea of what is going to be done when it's completed by the end of the summer.
Okay. And how did the term battery come about?
That was a Braves idea, but it makes sense. You know, the idea of a battery, of course, is the pitcher and the catcher in baseball lingo,
Right.
and it just makes perfect sense to join up against the stadium. So
Okay.
really good creative marketing.
Right, exactly. Well, and when was ground first broken for the stadium?
I'll leave that to Commissioner Ott, since that was in his district.
Well, let's see. The vote on the stadium was in November of 2013, and ground was broken later that in 14 because what had to happen prior to the groundbreaking for the stadium was there were two major gas pipelines that had to be moved. Rather large pipelines. It took almost 8 or 9 months for the Braves to move those pipelines, and once those pipelines were moved, so I think the groundbreaking was in September of 2014.
And when was the certificate of occupancy approved?
February 28th. I know that date well because it was a milestone on the board that actually was February 24th, not 28th. February 24th of this year. So basically 30 months from groundbreaking to opening the park.
Okay, great. And how many seats does the stadium hold?
41,149. So when you do the combination exercise on the stadium where you have to move the numbers around, if it's a full house, remember it's 41,149.
Okay. And how does that compare seat-wise to what was at the TED? Do you know?
Yeah, it's roughly about 9,000 seats smaller.
Okay. And are there unique physical aspects to this park that you don't see in other Major League Baseball parks around the country?
We don't have all night. There are a lot.
There are. I mean, probably one of the ones that's that they've talked about that's some of the most difficult for the players to get used to is right field, the right field wall. It's taller, but it's also three different surfaces because below the chop, which is part of the chop house, is basically like a chain link fence separating fans from the right fielder. And then you have some of the green wall above that, and then you have a brick wall above that, and then you have the people in the chop house. So that wall is taller than most. So some of the balls, as a matter of fact, this past weekend, there's some that would have gone outside the stadium on the rest of the stadium, but bounced back in with that wall. So it's just the different surfaces they have to get used to. Then there's just, it's 400,000 square feet smaller. And a lot of that was kind of moving storage around instead of just having closets or whatever. There was an attempt to make the stadium more intimate.
Okay. And was
But the important feature of this stadium is it has chillers for the beer mugs. Believe it or not, it's the little things in this stadium that really impress, I think, either the new fan or the old fan. The attention to detail that the Braves have spent trying to make every single thing about the stadium an entertainment center, where they have a area for the kids to play. So I was speaking to somebody today in the gym where they went for a game this weekend and never got into the game because their kids wouldn't let them by the area where the kids get to play. They have a climbing wall there. They have a running bases.
Zip line.
They have a zip line. They also have the electronics in the stadium was without exception the finest probably in the country. So they recognize the fan today is very tied to his iPhone and to the internet and the Wi-Fi. So they're trying to make it so that you can go to different parts of the stadium and experience the game in different ways. So my hat's off really to the Braves on how they were creative in appealing to the mass audience that's here in Cobb County and our local area.
I think another important thing is for the true baseball fan You know, in stadiums past or even Turner Field, if you had to get up and go to the bathroom or you went up to get something from the concession stand, there was a period of time that you were out of sight of the stadium or what was going on the field. There are no walls between the field and the concourse. All of the concession stands are on the outside. All the bathrooms are on the outside. And there are 219 video screens that at every concession stand, there's one at each side that if something happens on the field, you don't have to turn around and figure out what happened. It's up there in front of you. So not only is there stuff for the kids and the family, but the whole stadium is designed that if you're into baseball, you're not going to miss anything.
There really is not a bad seat in the stadium. It's amazing. No matter where you sit in the stadium, you will get to see the whole game. Very impressive.
Well, there's also a historical section too, where they talk about the history of the franchise. I believe that's fairly unique, I imagine.
Well, yeah, but what's a little bit different was, unlike Turner Field, where they had a Hall of Fame, they did away with the Hall of Fame. They have Monument Garden, which has the new Babe Ruth statue, and it has some other historical artifacts. But what they did was they took all the stuff from the Hall of Fame and it's scattered around the stadium. So no matter which way you walk, what level you're on, there are historical memorabilia from the Braves' history around the stadium, so that you don't have to go to one place. And that just kind of, once again, kind of just creates this atmosphere at the stadium that's totally different.
Okay. And was there ever a discussion about the stadium being an enclosed facility like you see in some?
Thank you, Joel.
Yes.
No.
No. See it? That was an easy question to see. And when a batter steps up to bat, what direction on the compass is he facing?
Depends if he's left-handed or right-handed.
Well, give or take. I mean, basically the stadium is 180 degrees out from Turner Field. So when the batter's looking at the pitcher, they're looking to the southwest. Whereas at Turner Field, they were looking to the northeast.
Okay. And it's been alluded to a little bit earlier this evening, but SunTrust Plaza has been mentioned as having a high-tech aspect to it and bringing new features to the enjoyment of baseball for fans. What are some of those electronic features that you've brought to bear?
Well, the first one is a terabyte fiber optic feed into the stadium. The Comcast folks will joke and say that when they ordered the fiber, the company said, well, we've never sent this to a Chinese military base or even the Pentagon because it's so big. I mean, it's literally about this big around. It's terabyte. It's designed to allow everyone in the stadium and everyone in the battery to download a movie at the same time in about 20 seconds. So just that technology then allows all kinds of stuff to be kind of broadcast around the plaza. There's big screens. They have a big screen over by the Georgia Power Pavilion. So that's really the biggest thing is the feed that comes in, and then the technology that allows.
And what about the Jumbotron? How big is it?
Oh,
Big.
yeah. No, it's
Yeah, it's I forget. I want to say, if I remember right, it's actually 132 or something like that individual panels. That when they put it together, it's almost like take a bunch of widescreen TVs and put them all up there together, and then they're all integrated together. It took about a month of testing to get it all up in sync.
Well, okay. And again, this has also been referenced, but the fact that the park is not a standalone facility, but there are other businesses built around it to create a well-rounded fan experience. Can you
Right.
go into a little more detail about sort of what those types of businesses are and what sort of things you expect fans to be able to enjoy in addition to the Braves?
Well, I think probably the neatest one is the Mizuno experience. Okay, and there's really two parts. Mizuno is a Japanese sports equipment company, and in the Mizuno experience down in the battery part, they have an area for runners where you can try out their shoes, and they have a treadmill, and there's a screen in front of you. They have a place to swing your golf clubs to check out that and work on your swing. Then they have a place where it's the BIOS system where you can go in and you swing a bat. But what's really neat is if you take your son, your daughter, your grandchild to the stadium and you realize when you look at your seat, I should have brought him in, you can go sign one out. Because over by the right field and left field foul poles are Mizuno glove stations where you can just go sign out a mitt for $1 in your driver's license, and then take that mitt back to your seat and use it for the game.
Okay.
So
Just in case you didn't think to bring your own.
that's right.
Yeah, but the idea is that you get to the game early and you leave later. And the reason for that, one of the reasons for that is, of course, is that obviously people are going to get there over 3 or 4 hours before the game. And so the traffic management plan is, as people are finally realizing, has been really well thought out. So getting to the game has not been an issue. But then everybody wants to go home, in 15 minutes after the game. So what the Braves have tried to do, and I certainly encourage that, is that rather than sit in your car, and be frustrated, take your opportunity to go one of the restaurants or outlets around the stadium, for half hour, an hour after the game, and then go to your car and you can leave. And of course, there's eating establishment there. Some of the restaurants are open already. There will be retail stores, and of course, the Fox, the Roxy Theater, sponsored by Coca-Cola. I think that people are really, really going to be impressed by the experience. And remember, this is 365 days a year that this is going to be available. So on those days when the Braves aren't in town, you can go park in one of the garages, all right, and walk right into Battery Park and enjoy the experience there.
Yeah, some of the things coming online in addition to the restaurants already there. There's more restaurants. There's some retail shops. There's a bowling alley. There's a wine tasting bar. But in addition to just the shops, the Braves are going to have 5K races in there. They're going to have outdoor concerts. They're going to have just family fun days. It's really going to be some baseball is going to be happy. It's going to almost become, oh, there's a baseball game today.
Right.
In addition to the other things going on. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing for District 2, since the stadium's in the district, is we're going to start a section in my Friday newsletter of what's going on in the Battery next week.
And the Commissioner, you just referenced on something people ask about, which is, are there things going on in the park itself besides games? And you mentioned concerts.
Well, and actually, there's even things going on during the game because, like, for example, during a sold-out game, you can still see the game because you can come in and the first, folks park in the red deck. The red deck has 700 reserved spots for the patrons of the various restaurants and retail stores. You just have to, spend a certain amount of money and then you don't pay for parking. But all of those places have screens that the game is on. There's a big screen over by the Georgia Power Pavilion, which is by the Comcast building, and the Omni that has a game on it. So a lot of folks come and just hang out in the Battery, watch the game, and then when the game's over and everybody else comes out to the Battery, just continue the experience.
And you have the option also if, like, you go to dinner and you decide, I want to take in the game for a while. There is a way to get into the park for less than $10 to be in a standing room only section of the stadium, and you can watch the game, from out there in center field. You don't get a seat, but you can still come and watch. So, if you have, a couple hours, you just want to sort of see what's going on with the game, go on in, grab yourself a beer at the Chop House, and stand up there and enjoy the game. So they've thought of everything in this approach.
Speaking of the Chop House, I mean the special beers. If you're familiar at all, Terrapin Brewery is from Athens, Georgia, and they have a Terrapin brewery here at the stadium. And there's a particular beer that they make that is pretty popular. Well, they have modified that recipe, and they take some of those Mizuno bats and they grind them up and they put them in the beer when it's brewing, and make a unique beer. I mean, it actually tastes pretty good. But the cheapest seats in the stadium are only $7. So it's relatively inexpensive to bring a family over there.
Sure.
And that was one of the things that was attempted, was to make it so that it wasn't going to cost you a fortune to bring the family to the Battery or the stadium.
Okay, great. In terms of jurisdiction, when I walk into the park or the Battery, in whose jurisdiction am I? Am I on the private property of the Braves? Am I in the city of Smyrna? Where am I?
Yeah, so when you're in the Battery or the stadium itself, you're in the jurisdiction of Cobb County. The city of Smyrna comes just about 150 feet east of Cobb Parkway into the Battery. So everything from that point west, of course, would be the city of Smyrna off Cobb Parkway. But the stadium itself and the Battery and the parking decks around the area are all under Cobb County's jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's unincorporated Cobb, I should say.
Okay. And in the event that there might be a fire on the premises of SunTrust Plaza, is there a fire department substation located nearby?
What's happening right now, until back 1 or 2 spots ago, the county had decided that we needed to have a fire station in the Cumberland area. But then with the downturn in the economy and when development kind of slowed down in the Cumberland area, that station wasn't built. It's referred to as Station 29. Station 30 has been built now. It's over on Windy Hill by the Windy Hill Macklin connector. So right now, the county's in the process of locating a site for that fire station. Once that's done, that fire station will be built. But prior to that, what the fire department does is pre-position the necessary equipment into the area so that you have the additional coverage.
Okay. And what about, are there places on site where you have first responders who are regularly hanging out, waiting to provide services for someone who has emergency, like a fan who gets a little too excited and catch a foul ball and they flip themselves over a pole? I mean, is there on
There
site?
actually is. Metro Ambulance has a what they call a dispatch station on site. They also have pre-positioned vehicles just modified golf carts that have all the necessary equipment. It's almost like in the Navy where you have different colored shirts, and the lime green shirts are the emergency personnel. And they're stationed around the stadium, and they have all the special equipment that you would need to be able to bring someone out of the stadium. And then they have ambulances. There is parking actually underneath the stadium, and there's ambulances down there and some other areas around the stadium.
Okay. And are there defibrillators on the premises?
Yes,
And how about a first aid station?
there is. I don't remember exactly where it is, but
Okay. Okay. And what jurisdiction of law enforcement is providing security for the game and the premises?
It's a combination of the Cobb County Police Department, which is providing about 95% of the security and the event command from a law enforcement perspective, and then it's supplemented by the sheriff's deputies who are helping out on the inside of the bowl itself.
Okay. And will it be,
but I think it's also important to note that the county kind of does the external security. When you get into the battery, that is private property. So the folks that run the battery have hired a private security firm. So in addition to the county police, they have the private security firm. But then inside the stadium, the Braves have also hired off-duty police officers. So you'll see some Cobb County police officers, Smyrna police officers, sheriff deputies walking around. They are off-duty hired by the Braves. So it's really a combination between the Braves, the county, and the battery.
and so if something were to happen on the battery itself, how does that interplay work with these security officials who've been hired by the battery owners and the Cobb County Police Department? How do they interplay there?
Right. So we have worked very closely with both Braves and Battery Security. It's even though it's all part of the Braves footprint, it's two different components of that footprint, and so we work very closely with them. And those security companies have met with our managers who are managing the off-duty employment inside those two venues. And so if there's an incident that occurs, and it comes out through 911 channels like normal, of course, that off-duty officer in that footprint would work that call, or maybe a security officer discovers a problem. And then to supplement that, if we needed to, of course, Precinct 3 officers could respond. Of course, that's still within the jurisdiction of Precinct 3 in Cobb County as well.
And as you can imagine, there's an operations plan that's been developed during the construction of the stadium, and so there's coordination that whether you're an off-duty, on-duty, private security, or whatever, everybody knows what the protocols are.
And I can add just a little bit more to that. So in the game itself, and this holds true in the battery. So this weekend in the in-game operations center of the stadium, calls would come in sometimes through security, sometimes through the 911 center, and sometimes the officers working the extra duty employment there. And in all three cases, there's a combination of effort to solve the particular problem as it came in. And as the commissioner mentioned, there is a stadium response guide that we built this spring that outlines our approaches to various calls inside the venue.
And who contributed to that operations plan? What entities, not what persons, but what entities?
Right, it's the Cobb County Police Department, actually led by the Department of Public Safety, but the Cobb County Police Department, Cobb County Fire Department, the Sheriff's Department, and a 911 center all contributed to that, and it was headed by our Emergency Operations Center in Cassie Mazoom.
Okay, all right. And will there be any officers from the city of Smyrna who have been deputized, for lack of a better phrase, and brought in to help provide security that night as well as overflow?
No, we discussed that, and there's some legal issues that we really just couldn't get around, and so inside the bowl and the battery itself, it's Cobb County Police Department and Cobb County Sheriff's deputies. Smyrna, like I said, their jurisdiction ends about 150 feet west of or east of Cobb Parkway.
Okay. And are there plainclothes officers that are patrolling the premises?
Now, if
We
we
have
told
some
you that,
security
you would behave.
Yeah.
So
We have a robust security footprint inside the stadium.
Let's just say you're being watched.
Right. Okay.
Without giving away out the secrets, I can assure you,
Sure.
This is has a state-of-the-art video capabilities, and it's all rehearsed. There were a lot of sandbox exercises before the stadium opened. The FBI came down and queried us on our response plan. I can assure you, this is a team that was prepared for opening day and for successive days in the stadium.
I know one thing that people have commented upon, or I guess have worried about. They said, "Hey, well, if the officers are patrolling the Brave Stadium, that means we've reduced our police force by however many officers that is. Therefore, things are not quite as safe elsewhere." How do you respond to that?
That's absolutely not the case. And so, in fact, the way our plan is built and the people from the police department or the sheriff's department who are working the footprint, and when I say footprint, I'm talking about the battery, the stadium itself, and then traffic control, all those positions are off-duty positions or extra-duty positions. And we have zero impact on precinct operations, specifically Precinct 3 and Precinct 4, because Precinct 4 touches off of Windy Hill Road. So my manpower in my precinct, and just like in Zone 4, hasn't changed one bit and doesn't change on game day at all. So our responses are exactly the same from both precincts. And in fact, we took the extra step of doing some geographical adjustments within Precinct 3 and Precinct 4 to allow for a more expedited response in case there was a traffic issue surrounding the stadium. We haven't discovered that, but at the end of the day, it's helped our responses within Precinct 3 and our ability to service routine calls, routine 911 calls, as we always have. So nothing has changed, not in those two precincts or any of the 5 precincts as a total. It's all exactly the same as it was prior to the stadium even being built.
Okay. So if I were a criminal and I thought the Cobb County Police are distracted on Braves night, I can go out and do some crime. That's not a good thought?
No, you probably should be a little more alert for us, because I think honestly, when the games are going on, it causes us to be a little more alert. We have a lot more officers in the county on those game days, and so I think your chances of getting caught are pretty good.
All right. All right. Now, does Cobb County have a special unit that was trained for the specific purpose of providing security and law enforcement services for the Braves and the park?
I wouldn't say a special unit necessarily, except for on the command piece. So we've managed the stadium itself with event commanders, so I'm one of them. There's some other folks who do the same, and we have we're heavily involved in the stadium response guide planning and the emergency planning. Most of us are incident commanders, and so you could say they had we had some extra involvement in the buildup. But in terms of inside the bowl and the security provided by the police officers and the deputies, it's essentially no different than working a call on the street. And so over the weekend, we had some calls with, standard routine calls were missing kids, or in many cases, actually, it was missing adults. We had the kids, we couldn't find the adults. We had some calls where people had drank a little too much at the Terrapin, and those are calls we handle every day anyhow. So it doesn't change our footprint or our methods of handling a particular call. So there's no particular training outside of what we're already doing necessary.
Are there any things unique about trying to patrol and provide security for a Braves game that it would be different than an individual incident? I know you said it's similar, but are there differences that are?
The differences would be the number of people. So there's 41,000 people, just fans, not including employees. So there's some thoughts about how you evacuate that many people, or what happens if there's a particular instance where you're dealing with a fan, maybe let's say he's unruly, and you're in a particular area of the stadium where it's not conducive for dealing with that fan. How do you move that scenario off to a safer location for the fan and for the officer? So some small nuances, but at the end of the day, it's frankly not much different than working a call on the road, except for your car is just not close by.
And one of the things when we did the tabletops that kind of came to light was, you think that, well, if something happens, you got to get everybody out of the stadium. Well, in a lot of cases, being in the stadium is a safer place to be, especially, with weather and things like that. There's a lot of places you can bring the folks in. They're going to be more safe in the stadium than they would be out on the street. So, and then in addition, there is, if you want to call it a satellite 911 center at the stadium, there's this satellite traffic management center at the stadium, so that we have folks not just at the regular traffic management center or the 911 center that the county has, but you have folks that are right there at the stadium. So I think, it helps with the response time. So it actually makes, I think, a little bit easier sometimes to manage.
So so you're referring to the same 911 center everyone's calling if they have an emergency. Only difference is they're taking a part of it and putting it there on the side of the stadium.
It's really kind of a supplemental, so it's going to pick up the call. and then they're going to be right there, and those folks are going to be familiar with the stadium. Whereas instead of if you come to the 911 center, it's over the police headquarters. Then they're going to have to send get back to the stadium, and so it's really kind of like we said. You have the Metro ambulance has a dispatch center there. You have a traffic management center, and you have a 911 center, all right there at the stadium.
And in an era where all fans have smartphones and the smartphones have video features to them, so you get citizens who get arrested because they're maybe just being disruptive. This ends up on and you see videos pop up on CNN, Fox News, other social media. How has the training been provided to the officers to help deal with those realities?
Well, actually, the police officers that work for the police department, the Cobb County Police Department, want video cameras. So many of our officers have body cameras. We're working on expanding that program. There's a massive cost associated with that. But so the officers who have body cameras issued to them are wearing them inside the stadium. But as the chairman pointed out a little bit ago, there'll be, if any incident, there'll be plenty of video reviews, even outside of cell phones, because the stadium itself has cameras everywhere. There's really nowhere you can be without being on a camera. So it doesn't change how we do our job. Just like the in-car cameras I spoke about for many years doesn't change how a police officer does his job. He's still going to do it the same. It's just now that police officer has a video to support the actions he's taking.
And does the county have a permanent command post located on the premises, or is it just on specific events?
I wouldn't say the county has a permanent command post. The Braves have what's called the In-Game Operations Center, which is new to this stadium as compared to Turner Field. And in that In-Game Operations Center, just as Commissioner Ott mentioned, that's where we have a 911 dispatch center. It's where the event commander works. It's where Metro Ambulance works. And the Braves have their security there as well, both their own security that the Braves have, plus their contract security works out of that center. And so there's a small office there where communication can occur real time, right next to the person next to you.
Okay.
And I think when Major Adcock says that it's different than Turner Field, this whole complex is different than Turner Field, and that you have the Battery. The Battery's open 365 days a year, so it's not a matter of just having to provide security inside the stadium when you have a ball game. I mean, they're providing security and for the entire complex all the time. So, I mean, you can see why they would have a need to have security personnel around all the time.
Okay. One of our additional questions we were asked by one of our attendees here is that to the effect of, will fans be required to carry see-through purses or bags, similar to which is what fans do at the Georgia Dome now?
No, there was a little bit of discussion from the Braves about not allowing food in. Pretty much now, like the airport, you have your Ziploc bag, you can bring food in there, but somebody brings a bag that just gets checked as you go through the metal detectors, pretty much the same as it was at Turner Field, so there's no special requirement.
Okay. And what is the level of the officer or official who's in charge of providing game day security? Is it a major? Is it the police chief?
No, so right now, I think tonight it's actually a captain. I was one of the event commanders on Sunday. I'm a major, so it's a captain or a major, and as I mentioned earlier, it's someone who's been trained in incident command.
Okay. And if someone is arrested on the premises, who or what jurisdiction is conducting that arrest?
Almost 100% of the time, it's going to be the Cobb County Police Department will conduct that arrest.
And do Brave security officials have any arrest privileges of their own?
No, they do not have no arrest authority, and in fact, any arrest decision is the purview of the police department or the sheriff's department, depending on who's working that call.
Okay. And is there a substation on the premises where fans who get arrested are detained?
There is. There's they call it the precinct. I don't really like that term. It's more of an office with 2 holding cells. So there is a place to detain them. We haven't had to use it yet. We use it as an office to have our squad meetings before the games, and to just run officers into and out of the stadium itself. But we haven't used our holding cells yet.
And it doesn't have any windows, so you can't watch the game from there. So you don't want to go there.
Okay. Just as if you need another reason not to get put in that. There's another one. And so I think you were answering, you said two holding cells?
Yes, 2, well, male and female.
Okay.
I think it's important, just for a second, Joel. I was talking to one of the policemen one day as I was getting my orientation about security around the stadium. And it's interesting, the crowds that come to baseball games and some of the other sports events. And they had been speaking with other Major League Baseball enterprises throughout the country about, enforcement of unruly fans in a baseball game. And he had an interesting statistic. and this doesn't mean to demean the sport, but just a statistic, is that for this Major League Baseball team, they had 37 arrests for their 81 home games. 37 arrests during that whole baseball year. And yet for another sporting other than baseball,
It only has 8.
they arrested more than 37 people a game. So it's an entirely different crowd. And the second thing is I want to emphasize is this Cobb County. I've said this from day one. They're just some of the nicest people in the world live in this county. And it never occurred to me that we would have issues with crowds. There's always the exception, but that's exactly what it's the exception. And I think that with the police presence we have and security presence of the Braves, everybody knows that if somebody gets out of hand, they're gonna snap that off really early to keep it from getting out of hand. Because you sometimes just have a little bit too much fun, and you ruin the experience both for you and the people around you. So even though we have measures in place to address the unruly fans, it's not what's driving us. And we have far other concerns of, again, trying to find the lost parent. The amount of questions you get. As I was helping watch traffic being directed on Sunday. I got to be careful about liability here. And it's amazing as people would come driving because it's a brand new stadium. It was amazing the amount of information that both police and sheriffs had when somebody came up and asked them a question. They knew exactly where to send that motorist that had questions about where to go to park or to go in the stadium. I cannot say enough things both about the people in this county and about the level of training that went into making sure that everyone who comes to the park, the Battery Park of Central Stadium, gets the best experience because the people that they encounter that are part of this enterprise, are trained to a point to make it a really positive experience.
Okay.
And that is really that is one of the basically the major thing, especially from the Braves perspective. Everything is about the experience, all the way down from how getting into your parking lot to leaving your parking space when you go home, and everything in between. Because you're not, and from their perspective, especially when you have the Battery, you're not coming just to watch a baseball game. You're coming for you're taking the family out either for a Sunday afternoon or a nighttime game, and enjoy the meal or the experience in the sandlot or the kids area, and then the baseball game. And so it's really all about the experience that you have. And from the county's perspective, a lot of these folks, if you look at where the folks come from, the Braves are unique from a lot of teams. Is they don't just draw from Atlanta. They draw from 5 of the southeast states. And so a lot of folks that are coming to the game are not from Cobb County. They may not even be from Georgia. So in addition to the Braves' efforts to make the experience a positive one, that's been a big effort on the county's part, because one of our major sources of revenue is tourism. And so now you have this tremendous facility that's going to bring people into the county. And so it's really important for us to be working with the Braves and internal to the staff to make sure that somebody comes, has a good experience.
And what role, if any, did the fact that you have fans coming from these other states play in the planning process for this particular experience?
I think the biggest thing that it has to do with is the signage and getting the information out. Everyone was used to going to Turner Field, where basically you get on one or two highways, either the connector or I-20, and the parking's in one place, so it's not that hard to find. If you find the stadium, you find the parking. Well, here, there's 15,000 parking spots, but they're scattered all around. The largest parking deck may only have even less than 1,000 parking spots, and they're scattered all around. So you have the signage to get folks into the stadium area. There's 14 different ways to get there. So you have to bring them from there. And if you're coming from the northeast, there's really no reason for you to be on the west side of the stadium. So that's part of the experience. Then when you get close to the stadium, getting you to your parking. So the county and the Braves work together to create an app for your phone that literally takes you from your house. Well, you can buy your ticket and your parking, and you tell it, here's where I am. And each one of the parking lots, different from Turner Field, each parking lot has its own address. So you put into that app, I'm going to, 11, parking lot 11, and it's going to take you from your house to that lot. And because of the partnership between the county ways and the Braves, if there's traffic congestion on the way, it's going to give you a different direction to get there.
And what's that app called?
It's MLB.com ballpark.
Okay. And I assume that's free to download?
It is. And then when you get to the stadium, it sees that you're at the stadium, and it basically says, "Welcome to, SunTrust Park," and then it kind of starts telling you about stuff that's going on in the park. So it's literally your guide from your house to your seat, and that's all part of the experience.
Okay, great.
A great picture on the screen right now. Can they see this at home? Where they shows the different parking lots that are around.
Great. Thank
And,
you.
and I got to tell you, quite honestly, obviously having this many parking lots scattered out the area was a concern that I had, but it's working. People are the Braves were very understanding the first couple nights, but then they started to enforce that you had to have a parking ticket before you showed up at the garage. And I think it's the message that we have sent, not we, I mean we collectively, the Braves, the county, the other enterprises, that buy your ticket and buy your parking place before you show up. That has really worked. And so, given the fact that we've had every game's been a sellout through the weekend, um, the fact that we have not had backups and everything, I think reflects to people that people are downloading these apps, they're downloading the tickets and buying their parking, and they're going right to these parking places.
And how do I buy those parking spaces separate and apart from my ticket?
Well, what happens is when you buy your ticket, you're given the opportunity to buy your parking at the same time.
Oh, so you're prompted to do that?
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
and what happens on Braves.com/parking, there is a list of all the parking lots because some of them are controlled by the Braves around the stadium, and others are either part of hotels or office buildings. There's various opening times for the different lots because it depends on what the Braves have worked out with the owners of the property. And then, in addition, some lots only take your parking ticket. They refer to it as a permit. Other lots you can pay with a credit card or debit, and there are a few lots that take cash. But basically, what would happen is when you buy your ticket, it's then going to ask you to buy parking. And what we've been really pushing folks to do is buy your parking, same time you buy your ticket.
And you'll see on the screen, it's got the games listed, and then it tells you, okay, here's your chance to buy your parking pass. And I think it's important to realize is that it's one thing for the Braves to be able to coordinate all their own parking, but they've also done a great job of coordinating these enterprise parking lots. So my experience as I was walking around this weekend is that it didn't make any difference whether you bought Braves parking or you bought enterprise parking. The entrepreneurs, they were driving into the right lots. The system is that good.
Now, what regulation, if any, has the county been employing with respect to the non-Braves parking?
The only requirement is that they register. And then there are some other requirements. For example, you can't collect money right as you turn into the parking. The whole thing is designed for the safety of the pedestrians, where you're mixing pedestrians and vehicles. So the idea is you get the vehicles off the road into the parking lot as easily as possible, then they can collect the money. And the reason that the county has them register with the county is so that we know where they are, so that as the county continually modifies the traffic plan, you can account for these different lots.
And what other things are required of those owners as part of the registration process?
They have to show their traffic management plan. They have to have an attendant on duty at all times. They have to show where they're going to collect the money. So that the county can ensure that the money is being collected off of the street. And I think, if I remember right, it has to have a certain amount of lighting.
Do they set the price can't be higher than X amount?
No, it's totally free market on that.
And what about security for the car? So obviously
Well, they have to have attendants.
Okay, so they can prevent somebody from breaking their car, hopefully, while they're gone.
Right.
Okay. And do you know what roughly is the number of Braves approved parking spots that there are?
There are approximately 15,000 Braves, if you want to say controlled parking. Those are not always available every single game. For example, there's some over at the Galleria Convention Center. And then there are about 1,200, and I say 1,200 to 1,500 because it continues to increase every day, of entrepreneurial lots or spaces. And they're scattered around. I think it's 4 lots in the county and 2 in the city of Smyrna.
And what's the furthest away from the park itself? Are they like half a mile, a mile?
The furthest ones are away are Wildwood Office Park over on Powers Ferry Road. But on the distant lots, the Braves have shuttle buses that bring you from the lot to the stadium. And there's a designated area where the shuttle buses drop you off, and then after the game, you would go back out there and get on the shuttle bus, and then it would take you back to the lot.
Are there any other connector companies offering connector shuttle buses from off-site places to get closer in?
Funny you should ask. There's one called
We try to ask
Cobb-
good questions here.
There's one called Cobb Link. which is the old Cobb CCT. It's basically the Cobb transit system. The circulator is just began on March 28th. And there are currently, you would see 3 out there. The blue and the green are the same route. That's kind of the Cumberland core, but they go opposite direction. One goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise. And then the red goes from the core down towards the Home Depot area. And that circulator is designed to not only get you back and forth to the game, but also to get you around the Cumberland area, 365.
And what is the cost of the connector bus?
$250, the same as Coblink.
Oh, okay.
But it's also tied into the Breeze Pass, so you have all the options you have on MARTA.
Okay.
And MARTA, contrary to what people may think, MARTA actually does come to Cobb County. MARTA buses come from 2 locations, H.E. Holmes and also the Arts MARTA station. They come to the Cumberland Transfer Station where you can then get on the circulator or you can get on other Coblink routes. And Coblink Route 10 drops you off right on Circle 75 across the street from the stadium.
And then next year, when we implement Route 10X, it'll come from north part of the county, and it will stop at the stadium.
On 41.
Okay. But now, but MARTA buses are going to the Cumberland stop. They're not coming straight up to the stadium and dropping people off right there. Okay.
No, but the Route 10 does come from the Arts MARTA station and ultimately goes past the stadium. So there is a way to go directly.
Oh, good. Okay. Great. Wonderful. What about, are there, I know some fans, of course, are obviously going to be attached to using their cars to get around. And it sounds like from the numbers of spots we've talked about, it sounds like there's less parking, official parking, than there are actual seats in the stadium itself. So what do you tell those fans?
Well, what I tell those fans is that at Turner Field, where you had 50,000 seats, you had 8,750 parking spots. And on a full stadium at Turner Field, it was averaged about 10 or 11,000 cars. Okay, at SunTrust Park, you have 41,149 we talked about. So you have 9,000 less seats, but you have 15,000. And if you add in the entrepreneurial lots, you have 16,000 parking spots. So you have almost twice as many parking spots for 9,000 less seats. And so what I tell fans, and when you come in from 14 different directions and the parking scattered all around, you're not going to have a backlog getting into your parking lot.
And remember, a lot of people are using Uber and Lyft to get to the stadium. I think the very first night they had 2,000 Uber.
Right. At a typical game down at Turner Field, they had about 800 people using Uber. On opening night here at SunTrust Park, we had 2,500 to 3,000.
I guess I should say for our audience members, we're not actually endorsing those companies.
No.
We're just saying those are options you
Well,
can
no,
use.
It's one of the
Uber-
many options we have, though.
Uber
Right,
has a
right.
partnership with the Braves, and so there is an Uber drop-off lot. But that's just to give you an example of the difference in numbers.
Okay. So the Braves actually have a formal partnership with Uber?
Yeah, yes, they have a partnership with Uber and with Waze.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
And in case you've forgotten, we do have a partnership with the Braves. We do make a small investment with them on occasion.
Right. I would hope there's a partnership there, yes. Now, what about the needs of those folks who are coming to the game who have physical limitations or in wheelchairs? What can they do about parking and getting to the game?
Well, Metro, the ambulance service, they provide service from the car to the stadium. And
There's also a ADA, American with Disabilities drop-off point. It's right by the Delta Gate, big Delta tail, which is right at field level. And then all around the concourse, there are sections that kind of are carved out with railings that have no seats
Right.
for folks in wheelchairs or things like that, so they can come see the game.
And so, in terms of the needs of the physically challenged, I guess, or folks who have wheelchairs, they can get access throughout the entire park wherever they need to go.
Yes. Right.
One of the things to keep in mind is that the actual playing surface is about 30 feet below grade. So when you drive up to the stadium on Circle 75, the field is about the same level as Circle 75, but all the entrances into the park are at the 100 or the concourse level. And so when you come across the pedestrian bridges over Windy Ridge Parkway or Circle 75, you're going right into the stadium. And then, of course, there's ramps, there's elevators, and so folks with disabilities have absolutely no problem getting around.
And I can actually add one more piece of that. So I found out this weekend that the Braves actually have staff members on site that once you get into the bowl, they'll bring a wheelchair to you. If, let's say you can't walk very far, and take that wheelchair and get you to your seat, and then take you back out as well. It's very impressive. The accommodations they've made for our ADA fans.
And so how would a fan ask for that if they were getting there?
The first Braves employee they see, they tell them, and that call comes up to the in-game operations center, and that call gets assigned out to literally a group of people whose job, their sole function, is to work and help out fans who have various medical needs or disabilities.
Okay.
Another good example of the attention to detail the Braves have paid to making this a great experience for everybody.
Sure. Okay. Well, great. Now, I know some people have probably commented on the fact that, the 75 to 85 interchange is pretty congested on its own terms, and when you put a Brave stadium on top of that, one would think, or some of these folks may have said, hey, this is going to be like a complete nightmare. So how has the county tried to address those comments, and what plans they put into place to help address those things?
Yeah.
We just tell you it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think the first thing that was the really brilliant move was they shifted the start time from 7 to 7:30. I was doing a ride along with Precinct 3 one night, and I asked to be driven around the stadium at 7 o'clock before it opened. But I just want to get a feel for the traffic during that time. And it was interesting that at 7 o'clock, 41 is relatively light, which is good because that allows game traffic to fill in that void. If it was still a gridlock, then you can imagine we would have troubles. But by shifting the game time later, that half an hour makes a huge difference in releasing the cork out of the bottle. Secondly, it's interesting, that has been the number one concern about at least what I've seen, is that dumping into this mixing bowl. And we've done a couple things at the county that I think has been really, really forthright. First of all, we've admitted, yes, there's going to be issues, all right? We haven't tried to pretend like, you're going to get 15,000 more cars into this and it's not an issue. But what I tell people is sometimes you just have to go to see what we did to appreciate what we did. And that they have now, it's just astounding, the emails I've been getting since Friday, the number of people that have been shocked saying I had absolutely no problem not just getting to the game, but getting home.
I mean, I live 3 miles from the stadium on the northeast side. Okay, opening weekend, I left my house at 5 or 6, and I was pulling into this parking at 6:10.
So there has been.
It has never taken me more than 15 minutes to get to a game. And as the chairman said earlier, if you leave right at the end of the game, okay, so you had 41,000 people come in staggered, and if you leave right at the end of the game, there might be some traffic, but the traffic management plan is designed to have the majority of traffic out of the area within an hour. So the solution to that is don't leave right away. Walk into the Battery, hang out, grab a soda, grab a beer, whatever. Wait the 30, 45 minutes, and you're not going to have any traffic. It's taken me about 15 minutes to get home doing that.
And that's a great point, Commissioner. So the game starts at 7:35. What is the thought process about when your fans are going to get there? Ideally, 6?
They get there early because of the Battery Park.
And they have actually gotten there. Typically, the Braves open the gates 2 hours prior.
2 hours prior
to the first pitch. Okay. Opening weekend, that was moved up to 3 hours prior because so many people came earlier than expected to see the stadium, to see the Battery, that was moved up. But generally speaking, the gates open 2 hours prior.
Okay.
But if you think about it, even before the gates open, all those restaurants in the Battery, the Antico Pizza, the Live, Terrapin Tap Room, Yard House, they're all open. The only thing that changes is that, 5:35, the gates open and you can go into your seats. And you'd be amazed at how few people are actually going into the stadium at 5:35. It's pretty much only ones that haven't been to the stadium yet. Most people are hanging around at the Battery.
And that's the attraction. They come early because you can now do something if you come early, and there's a reason to hang around.
Right.
And you don't have to leave before 3 games ago or 2 games ago, first time they went into the bottom of the 9th inning. The first 3 games, they never got to the bottom of the 9th inning because they were ahead. But there was no reason to leave early. A lot of folks will leave early at Turner Field. And what I've noticed over the first 4 games was each game, less and less people appear to be leaving in the 8th inning than, you at Turner Field, you just see this mass exodus going up the stadium steps. And what I noticed over the first 4 games was that just was not happening.
I think the word is getting out by word of mouth that it doesn't matter when you leave, you won't be sitting there forever trying to get out because of the different ways we have to get out of it. And remember, we opened up the bridge across 285 on Friday. And so that's another pressure relief, that people can park across 285 if they want to over there and walk across the bridge. I just think that all the efforts that went in by the Braves, by the county, by our partners to address this issue that everybody knew was going to be an issue, not only did they address it, but they addressed it smartly so that clearly, it's been really surprising to me how much of it has worked so well, because the variable that you can't plan on is that guy driving the car.
Right.
But they have been paying attention. They've been buying their parking passes early so we don't have backups, trying to get turned around because they didn't have a ticket. They've been doing their homework. They've been following the waves. It's been impressive performance by everybody, including the fans, that are very concerned about this issue of being stuck in traffic. But if you do your part, like we're doing our part, it won't be that big of a deal. And that's just clearly what's happened.
There's also two unique features, one outside of the stadium and one inside the Battery, that are new to both Turner Field and Cobb County. There is actually a tailgate lot up Circle 75 near Windy Hill that it is totally legal to tailgate and to drink. Now, you can't carry any alcohol from that lot to the stadium, but once you get into the Battery, they check your ID. If you go into a bar or restaurant, you get a wristband, and then you can walk around the Battery. You don't have to only drink inside the bar or the restaurant, which then allows folks to move around the Battery and makes the entire Battery an experience, instead of you just in some small city where you're going to a restaurant. You're actually part of the plaza. You've got the field where kids are throwing baseballs or playing in the fountain, the interactive fountain, and you can walk around and do that. And so that's kind of unique. New things that the board put in place.
And where was that tailgate area you
The
said?
tailgate is it's Circle 75, almost up to Windy Hill. If from Interstate 75, it's the big long parking lot that you see. That's the tailgate lot. David, do you have the folks watching can see it on the screen. Okay, so if you see the striped lot right there, Circle 75, Braves North 29, that's the tailgate lot.
Okay.
And then inside the entire Battery is a open container.
And how many people could be accommodated if they stood shoulder to shoulder in that tailgate area? What's the capacity you think it has?
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
It's two big lots.
Yeah.
Well, cut in half. But get there early.
I can tell you that, like, when I come at 6 o'clock, or you probably have 30, 35, if not more, folks already tailgating.
Right.
They can be there by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, especially on the Saturday game.
So it's been getting a lot of use based on the games
it
it already
has.
has.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you mentioned the transportation plan that was put into place with respect to the stadium. How long has that been in the planning? Is it like in what year did that begin, and what entities contributed to it?
So that's been in planning for about 18 months, and it's a combination of DOT, the Cobb County Police Department, and a corporation that contracted with us to help build that plan. And it's been a work in progress. In fact, there was changes even going on yesterday regarding the plan, but as the chairman and the commissioner said, it's very robust. It's done an outstanding job of getting people into the stadium and out of the stadium. Some minor tweaks and issues here and there, but as the commissioner and the chairman said, people are getting in and out quickly. And an important point, talk about when the game's over with, remember the roads around Cumberland are built for that 4 o'clock traffic, that 7 o'clock in the morning traffic. And so when the game's over with at 10 o'clock at night, all that traffic can load into those roadways are actually built for much larger traffic flow.
Right.
And so that helps relieve that traffic flow as well. And from what I witnessed, I was there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There were some minor issues on Circle 75 right there at the stadium itself with that footprint, mostly related, honestly, to folks who had not purchased the parking passes and who were turned around and lost and weren't sure where to go. But that's quickly fixing itself through good communication. And the plan itself is working very, very well. And a key component of the whole thing, and as Commissioner Ott said, is the 14 different directions that you can get to the stadium and the parking locations. There are 360 degrees around the stadium as compared to Turner Field, where 2 ways in, 2 ways out, and all the parking are at that one spot, and many, many gypsy lots that weren't regulated that cause problems as well. So it's working great. The traffic plan is working really well.
And that's really one of the big things that we emphasized after the if you want to call it the exhibition game or the practice games, was that US 41 and Circle 75 is not the front door to the stadium. There really is no front door to the stadium because your front door is depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from Roswell or Fulton County or Gwinnett, it may be the third base gate. But if you're coming from Smyrna or down to Mableton, it's going to be the Chop House gate because you might park in the Battery. And so it's really, that has really made a difference. Once people figure that out, I mean, if there's any congestion, it's going to be right around the stadium. But the roads around, I mean, yesterday I drove down 41 from Windy Hill at 6 o'clock at night before a game, drove right by the stadium, no backup, went behind Cumberland Mall. And so that's the traffic backups that people thought were going to be there. They're just not there. A lot of it is the signage. If you've ever been on a cruise, when you drive up and it says, this cruise company here, this one here, this one here. Well, we have signs that say the same thing. And it says, if you're going to this lot, you're in this lane. If you're going to this lot, you're in this lane and you're over here. And so if you give people the information ahead of time, then it's an orderly flow. You don't even need people to direct traffic.
Well, that was my next question, because I think when people think of traffic flow with an event like a baseball game, they're thinking there are going to be lots and lots and lots of people who look like Major Adcock with cones or other signs steering traffic one way or the other. Is
Right.
that what's going on with this transportation plan?
It's not. So the plan itself is built around Cobb County DOT's Traffic Management Center and smart control of the traffic lights. So there's about 200 cameras in the area, and the people in the Traffic Management Center for the stadium itself and as well as out in county services can watch traffic flow and make adjustments to the timing of those traffic lights electronically from those two different control points. And so if they see a traffic intersection that's getting backed up, more so than we want it to be, they literally can flip a switch. The very next cycle of the light will expand the amount of time the traffic's allowed to flow in that green and empty out that intersection very, very quickly. So that's one component of it. The other component, of course, as you mentioned, is someone actually directing traffic in the road. And the problem with putting a police officer in the middle of the road is no one knows what to do, or the chairman, is that no one knows what to do when you see that driver, that police officer. It's hard for the drivers to see a police officer's hands moving back and forth, particularly at night. Secondly, it's hard for them it's impossible for them to hear what the police officer is saying. And so it creates a lot of confusion. And therefore, every driver stops when they see that officer and waits for direction and then makes the move based on that direction. And that's not efficient at all. And so traffic control itself on cars is controlled by the lights. The police officers that you see at the intersections are on the corners, and their role is to control and help pedestrians get across the roadway. Because as mentioned before, many different parking areas, people are walking to the stadium, and we're controlling and providing a safe environment for those pedestrians to get to the stadium. And so that's the role of the police officers. And now actually we're using some other entities within the county, such as firefighters, to help us out with that traffic control.
So the cameras reduce the number of need of officers there in the streets directing traffic.
Well, actually, I would say the more appropriate answer would be that the electronically controlled traffic signals reduce the need of officers in the traffic.
And then because security personnel are directing pedestrians, you don't necessarily have to have a uniform officer. For example, in coordination with the Braves and continuing work, for example, if you come out of the third base gate, there's stairs that go down to a sidewalk. Well, most people think, oh, I'm going to go down the stairs because my parking's over there. Well, no, there's a person that stands there and only lets the people go down there that are parked in the Boy Scout lot, because everyone else is going to go over the pedestrian bridge. And so the reality is most of the security personnel you see on the outside of the stadium are directing the people. And it's really to keep them out of the roads, so that then the traffic management center can manage the vehicle traffic and everything and get the cars out of there as quickly as possible. I mean, if you think about that, within an hour and 10 minutes, you can have the majority of the cars away from the stadium. That's a pretty big deal.
But I guess even with the technology, you still have like human beings, engineers that are directing the lights to adjust to traffic flow.
Well, that's only partially true. So the way our lights are built in Cobb County, and I'm not exactly sure how far the infrastructure goes, but they have electronic cameras that watch traffic, and when the load builds on a particular intersection, it can control that camera, and those traffic lights talk to each other literally. So if one intersection is saying electronically, "Hey, I have too much load here. I need to remove this load," it will communicate down the line to the other traffic signals to adjust their timing as well. And it's all handled electronically. And then, if necessary, a human being can adjust that timing. But much of this is handled through smart technology and computers.
Yeah, it's called an adaptive system. So, for example, most of the major arterials, US 41 and a lot of the roads around the stadium and some of the other major arterials around the county all have the adaptive system. And as Major Adcock said, it looks and talks to itself and adjusts the lights as necessary to keep the traffic flowing.
Is there a provision for, like, if bad weather comes along, lots of intense lightning, it knocks out part of the system? Is there some way it
Well, what
functions in
happens
that
is, sometimes you'll see where the lights will be blinking,
Right.
or they'll blink off, blink back on. The little metal boxes have a fail-safe mode where they'll initially try to reset themselves to what they were pre-programmed to. And if the power goes off long enough that it can't come back to that, it goes into a fail-safe mode, which is not necessarily an adaptive system, but it's a programmed fail-safe for that intersection to try to keep the traffic moving. If a light has gone all the way to blinking, the power has been off for quite a while.
Now, I know there's also, I guess I call it a sky bridge for lack of anything better, but it kind of goes over Circle 75 and kind of down parallel to where the Boy Scouts office is located.
Right, the pedestrian bridge.
Okay, and who built that, and where does it go to?
Yeah, the Braves built it. It will be ownership of it will be turned over to the county, but it basically goes a couple different ways. And remember, we talked about the fact that the entrance into the stadium is at the concourse level. So the kind of going from the stadium, you get on a bridge that goes over Caddy Corner to the intersection of Circle 75 and Windy Ridge Parkway on the northeast side. And then you have a bridge that goes down to the Windy Ridge Parkway Bridge, and then you have another bridge that goes down towards the tailgate lot. And there's ramps in both cases, and there's stairs in both cases.
Okay, so those are also handicap accessible.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So you did think of all those details.
Well, it's required by law. Anytime you create something for a normal person, you have to have a comparable service for a person with disabilities.
As is the bridge across 285.
Right. Okay.
ADA compliant.
Is there any thought about building additional lots in the near term for parking purposes, or are we pretty much where we are going to be?
Well, I think what you're going to see, there may not be managed lot. Well, the Braves are continuing conversations with other property owners about adding parking lots, but I think you're going to see probably more entrepreneur lots, private parking. But I do think that ultimately you'll probably see more lots. I know that there are some other locations that are looking into it. A lot of these businesses, because of the lease agreements that they have with their tenants, were kind of restricted in what kind of discussions they could have with the Braves about having parking. And so as these tenants and these property owners see that it's actually going to work, it's not going to shut down their parking lot for their tenants, it's an opportunity for a property owner to make some money because they're making some portion of the parking fee that you pay is going to the Braves, but then also to the property owner there. So I don't think you can ever have too much parking. For example, the Billy Joel concert next week has 35,000 people coming.
Right.
So, and if you think about that, you have 35,000 people going into the stadium for a concert. You can have other folks who are going to come to the Battery just to do stuff with the Battery.
And what about, I guess, speaking of making money, you can always see some enterprising sort saying, I'm going to buy 20 tickets and only use one, and I'm going to sell the other 19 at the Braves game to all these fans coming in.
The vendor laws that the county has prevent you from doing that. Now, it doesn't prevent, the mom or dad that, has 2 tickets and they just can't use them this game, and so they're coming up to trying to sell them. But, you're not allowed to come with a stack of tickets and sell them.
So that's a county ordinance?
Yes.
No scalping.
Okay, all right. So that's the kind of thing, if the police see that happening on the property of the Braves, they're going to shut that down.
They do. And
And have already. Yeah, they've already.
have already?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. And with respect to, I guess with respect to site, are there any particular websites that, besides the MLB website you mentioned, there are other ones that they're typically selling Braves tickets that people, if say, hey, I can't, they say like StubHub?
There are. I mean, I know that folks have bought some on StubHub, but I mean, the main place that, as we work with our partners, the Braves, I mean, Braves.com/tickets is where you get the tickets from the Braves, and that's where you get your parking and things like that. But, the biggest thing I would tell anybody is anytime you buy tickets from someplace other than the official site, you have to make sure that they're official tickets.
Right.
Now, with respect to the game on game nights, obviously I realize the games will end depending on how many innings they've gone into and what's necessary there. But is there a time after that where the actual stadium itself they want to usher everyone out of the actual stadium so they can go and do things in the Battery?
I haven't, it's what I've seen that, I've been there for 4 different games. And folks there's almost like a natural flow of folks out of the stadium. Now, once you go out of the stadium after a game, you're not allowed back in. Okay. But, the stadium seems to empty relatively quickly. There's always some hanging around.
Is there a Braves, deadline though, when everybody has to be out of the stadium?
There's not, but Brave Security is interested in about an hour to have that footprint cleaned out of fans, so to speak. And on Friday night and Saturday night, both, there was events at the Roxy Theater, and it required your ticket that you got into the game with to get into the Roxy Theater. So there is an effort to allow the fans to leave the stadium on their own. But at some point, security goes around. It's about an hour after the game's over. So security goes around and makes sure that the few remaining fans leave. And of course, they're asking nicely. They're very, very courteous.
And the other thing to remember is every Friday night there's fireworks,
Right. And on Sunday, there is kids running the bases.
which this past Sunday,
Took 2 hours.
yeah, probably every kid in that stadium ran those bases on Sunday.
Such a cool event, though.
Yeah, every single ramp was full all the way up to the 4th level.
But remember, there's with the Battery now, there's places to go after the stadium closed. There's no reason to
Right.
hang around.
Right.
The vendors are all closed.
Yeah,
So-
because alcohol sales end at the 7th inning inside the stadium.
Oh, okay.
All right, and so if you're going to continue and hang around, then you have to be outside the stadium if you want to buy any alcohol.
And how late can the places that are in the Battery sell alcohol?
Standard county rules, which I think is 2:30 in the morning.
Okay. So they can keep partaking if they so desire, I guess, even after the game is over.
Absolutely. And
Till
remember,
2:30 anyway.
we look at those glasses and we see splost.
That's right. Remember, every one of those beers is bringing money to the county.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think this brings us, I guess, to the conclusion of our program. I hate to end this because it's such an interesting conversation. We could talk for a lot longer than this, I know, but I think our broadcasting schedule prevents us from doing that. But I do want to thank the chairman and commissioner and Major Adcock for coming here tonight. I think we're very fortunate to have them have given so much thought and attention to this effort. And obviously, I hope the Braves game that's going on right now is going well for us against the Nationals.
Hopefully better than last
Hopefully
night.
than last night.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But we do want to thank each and every one of you, and of course, thank our audience members, both here physically as well as those who've been watching us on TV 23 as well as online. And of course, we'll be back again in future talks just like this. But again, thank you to each one of you for taking time out of your schedules tonight to be with us and share that information for the public so they can better experience the Braves.
You're welcome. Just go to a game.
That's right.
All right, go to the park. It's truly a wonderful experience.
Thank you for attending and watching on Cobb TV this evening. We thank you, and we are honored to have each of you as our dynamic panel members this evening. Our community is very fortunate to have each of you dedicating your lives to protect, to serve, and to ensure Cobb County remains a safe and extremely desirable place to live. A special thank you to David and to Brad for broadcasting tonight's discussion on Cobb TV. Thank you for joining us this evening. We invite you to watch all of our 2013 through 2017 panel discussions. You may look at that on Cobb TV or a link from the Neighborhood Safety Commission website. Please join us Wednesday, May 17th for our panel discussion on mental health. Thank you. Good night.